So thank you everybody for coming, and thank you everybody on YouTube who's watching. So we're continuing the Lalitavistara Sutra, the play in full. We're going to be on chapter 18 and maybe some of chapter 19 tonight. First, I'd like to show a little video clip that is part of a DVD that we made years ago regarding our pilgrimage to India. So this segment that I want to show has to do with Bodh Gaya. So what we've been reading about these past couple of weeks has been about the Bodhisattva being in Bodh Gaya, being in the cave, the Mahabodhi cave, and the Mahabodhi stupa that was erected as a tribute to that, and so on. So you're going to see some images related to this, and in particular, the Nairanjana River, which is the river that where the Bodhisattva crosses over. So this is what chapter 18 is about. So does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about thus far before I begin? Okay. All right, well then I'm going to screen share this. This temple here, this is the Great Lotus Stupa in Lumbini, Nepal, the birthplace of the Buddha. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but this was part of our trip. So this is Bodh Gaya that we're going to talk about. So this is the Mahabodhi stupa. So this was erected centuries after the Buddha, and this was all overcome by forest and was recovered, was found again by the English. And the British came in the 17th century or so and began to find all these great buildings and so on that were erected during the time of maybe about 1,000 years ago, more than 1,000. This is inside the belly of that stupa. And here is a very famous statue of Bodhisattva. This is all gold. Here are local Hindi people who are coming to pay respect. This design of this stupa is classic in India. These are the 5 Buddha families here. The group that we were with during the time for the pilgrimage. The Bodh Gaya is the location where the tree, this is the Bodhi tree, this is the enlightenment tree, this is a branch that is cut from the original tree that is replanted with clay. This walk is where the Buddha walked after he attained enlightenment, where he stayed for several weeks before he made his way to China. So we haven't gotten to that part of the story yet here in the Lalitavistara Sutra. These are stupas of well-known lamas and so on whose relics were memorialized. So sitting on the seat in the center is Drupal Ningpo. So here we're crossing over a riverbed. This is the riverbed of the Nairanjana River. We're making our way now out of Bulgaria up to the hill country, up to the mountain where the foot of the Bodhisattva. There we can see this is where up in these foothills, and now we're up at the foothill, looking back down on the Gaia Valley. It's the Gaia Valley there. So that building that you saw before is like a center that they've erected so that people who are coming, to visit and so on, have a place to come and to be comfortable, and there are people there all the time who are taking care of the cave and the other caves where the other practitioners were. This is that building I'm talking about. Now this is inside the cave. This is the actual cave. And this is the statue of the starving Buddha. This is not exactly life size. It appears that way here, but you can see, that you can see all the sinews of his body and so on. His ribs are showing, and his face is very drawn, and so on. And this black, this is all from the candles and the incense that has been burned inside of this cave for many, many, many centuries, because this has been a shrine for many Buddhists to come to for many, many generations and so on. So we were 13 people, I think, and we all fit in here, but we couldn't stand up straight very well. And it was very, very close. These are other statues that have been put here by the Hindi people. This is Drupal Ningpo. These are some of the other people. The fellow on the left side here, this is Drupal's brother, Karma, Kunchok Karma. And this is my good friend Kunchok Sultram, who's in the back. They were attendants for us. This is Michael Campbell from Tibetan Meditation Center. And this is Ani Yeshe from the Tibetan Meditation Center. So that was Kathy Shaw materializing. And then this is Howe. I can't think of his first name. Jack Howe, and his friend that he was traveling with, all inside the These are statues of different deities and Mahasiddhas, who here are like protectors. This is outside the cave now, and this in the center is juniper, this big hunk of leaves that are wrapped, pine leaves that are wrapped very tightly, and this is always burning. The whole area here is infused with the aroma of the burning juniper incense. These are our attendants. This was Kunchuk Karma and Kunchuk Sultrum. And this is a stupa here. And there may be relics in there of some well-known lamas who had passed, and they memorialized them here as a very, very noble place, a great blessing for their remains to be there. Now, this is the riverbed, and the breadth of it or the width of it is very, very, very big. And these are all small stones. These are all, maybe 4 inches by 4 inches, something like that, all different sizes, all different shapes, and so on. And this represents here when the Bodhisattva made his way down from the cave, from the Mahabodhi cave. He made his way down here to the riverbed, and he met the goat herder girl who first offered him food. In the story here in Lalitavistara, there's a little bit more elaboration on what this is, but we've known this story to be that he met this young girl. Maybe she was a metaphor. Maybe she was representative of the villagers and so on, who then began to come and offer him food. But this is in the center of the riverbed, so you can imagine that during the summertime, when the monsoons come, and this river becomes full of water, raging water. So I have to assume we were there in early spring. So this is all dry. So I can't understand how that water would affect this particular shrine. So this is another branch of the original Bodhi tree that was replanted here in this area right outside where the river is, on the banks of the river. So this Bodhi tree is very old. The first one that we saw was several miles away down in Gaya. This is still out in that country scene at the foot of the mountains and so on. So, but this is a branch. This is the replanting of a branch. So people would come and, of course, make offerings to this tree and so on, sit there and receive blessings from it. So now this pavilion here is built over the original root ball of where the original Bodhi tree was. You're going to see that in a moment, the next slide or so. You'll see that, but this is here to protect that for as long as it possibly can. So you can see that there's people here who are caretakers of this. So this here is the root ball. This is the location of the root ball. So this pavilion has been built over top of that. This is the interior of that root ball. So this is where the original tree was, and so you can see that people would, make offerings and so on. There's money down there. They put in kata scarves and so on as offerings for this great So So this is another shrine showing here is the Bodhisattva, and here are what would be the local people. These might have been nobles, or these might have been maybe representative of gods or something, because as we read in the Nairanjana chapter here, that many beings came and made offerings to the Bodhisattva. So this is all the riverbed that is all around here. This is another shrine. This is like on the shore of the river. So this is when the locals, the local villagers would come and make offerings to the Bodhisattva. So people would come here and recite prayers and chanting and so on like that for many generations. I'll continue a little bit more. This is going to taking a bus trip now, leaving Gaya very early morning, going to Varanasi. These are all here for things for people. This is on the main road. You see the classic buses, and the horns are honking the whole way here, constantly honking the horns. And you see people riding up on top of the bus. I mean, this is every day. People hanging on the back of a Jeep. More lorries, these trucks. And this is a village driving right through a village. And if you notice, there's a cow right here. And the cows go everything. Dogs and so on. And the streets are filthy. This is a bazaar. This is where people would come to for shopping, for food and so on like that. So this is coming into Varanasi now. Varanasi is where the ghats are, where they have the burials of rather the cremations of the Hindu people. Here is what would have been an old farm up here. It's on the shore of the Ganges River. You see buildings up here. And this is the typical home here, and you see the livestock that they have. And over here, if you can see it, you'll see a close-up in a moment. Here is a woman, an old woman, who is just sitting here looking at, taking care, making sure the animals are protected. So the livestock have their hovels here. They can go inside when they want and so on. And upstairs, up on the second and third floor, is where the family lives. So this is very typical of the this is a Home Depot. This is the building materials that people would come to purchase and so on. So you see this bamboo all lined up here and so on, bamboo over here, that they did not have any heavy machinery. Everything is done by hand. And the scaffolding to make these buildings is all done in bamboo. And the delivery is all done by these bicycles. That a bicycle drawing some kind of a cart, a delivery cart. Here you can see. Here are ladders made of bamboo. And you see over here, we got the Sutra at the moment. These are TVs and microwaves that are on the back of a tricycle that is delivering those. And this is coming into Varanasi late in the afternoon. sun is beginning to come down, and this is up, people coming to buy things. We've seen this is one of my favorite shots. You know, I was in the electronics business, and to be able to see this, this is the wiring network that is feeding these buildings around here and so on, and the electricity, but also the telephone service and the internet service. So, with all this network here, the baud rate of the internet is about four, which is a joke, of course, because the internet service, this was 20 years ago, was terrible at this time, and you can understand how slow it was. Plus, here on the right hand side, there are Buffalo and there's difficult traffic. Now we're coming into Varanasi. So this is outside my hotel window, and this is late in the afternoon, almost evening, and it's very beautiful and very quiet, except for the bells that you can hear ringing and the chanting that you can hear ringing, being chanted all around the area. And the incense, the aroma of incense is wafting in the atmosphere. Just absolutely magnificent. Um, it was very inspirational. It was very uplifting. So I would love to show you more, but that would take the whole time that we have and everything tonight. So does anybody have any comments or questions?
That
This
was
is great.
cool. Thank you. I enjoyed that.
Okay, very good. Give a little context to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it is eye-opening in a way, just to see the context. Yeah.
Yes, so I would encourage anybody, everybody to take a pilgrimage. If you can manage that in your lifetime, would be absolutely wonderful, and to visit these places and be part of a tour. You know, a lot of our lamas, a lot of our teachers here, you know, will take groups, small groups, and guide them and be able to tell them what is happening in each of the different sites and so on. So it's a great opportunity to do it. Okay. So how about if we start reading chapter 18 now? So if we can begin, Alex, if you'll begin first, if you'll read the first page, and then where a verse continues on to the next page, please finish the verse. And then after that, then let me see. Bernie, will you read the second page, please? And then Brendan, will you read the third page? And then Congo, you'll read the fourth page, and I'll read the fifth page, and then we'll continue that through. We're going to finish reciting this entire chapter, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss it. So, okay, so let me just make sure I got the. So it was Alex first, and then it was Bernie, and then it was Brendan, and then it was Kunga, and then it was Lance.
Oh, just one more clarification. When you
Yes.
say one page, does it mean like both sides of the pages or just one?
No, just the one page.
Just one page.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So then, all right. So you'll begin on the first page. So please carry on when you're ready.
Okay. I am. The Nairanjana River. Monks. During the 6 years, the Bodhisattva practiced austerities. He was continually followed by Mara, the evil one. Yet, although Mara tried his best to harm the Bodhisattva, he never found an opportunity. As it became apparent that it would be impossible to harm the Bodhisattva, Mara sad and dejected. Mara, sad and dejected, finally left. It is also expressed in this way. There is a pleasant wilderness with forests thickened pools of herbs to the east of Urubilva, where the Nairanjana River flows. There, for the sake of renunciation, the Bodhisattva persevered with continuous and stable strength to attain accomplishment and bliss. He remained calm and diligent. Mara approached him and said, with soft and pleasant words, "O son of the Shakyas, get up. What use is there in tormenting your body? Life is better for the living. Alive, you can practice the Dharma. As a living being, you can do that. Then later, you will have no regrets. But your complexion has faded and is almost gone. And it appears as though you are on the verge of dying. Death has 1,000 chances, while life has only one.
One who always gives and performs fire offerings will accumulate great merit. Why then do you practice renunciation? The path of renunciation brings only suffering, and taming the mind is hard. This is what Mara said when addressing the Bodhisattva. To reply to Mara, who said these words, the Bodhisattva said, "Evil one steeped in craziness, you have come here with ulterior motives, for you have no intent that will match my merits, Mara. If you are interested in merit, you would rather speak like this. Since the end of life is death, I do not concern myself with death. Wholly devoted to religious practice, I shall never back down. If even the flow of rivers can be dried out by the wind, then what about the body and the blood of the renunciate? Wouldn't that be dried out as well? When the blood has dried out, his flesh will wither. When his flesh has wasted away, his mind will become yet clearer. He will have more dedication, diligence, and absorption. Since I live like that, I have attained the highest perception, so I do not worry about my body and my life. Just look at the purity of my beings. I am dedicated and diligent. I have insight as well. In this world, I see no one capable of disturbing my diligence."
Better is death, the thief of the life force, than living an unwholesome life. It is better to die in battle than live defeated by the enemy. A coward cannot defeat an army. Armies conquer and win respect. Yet a hero can defeat an army. O Mara, I will easily defeat you. Desire is your foremost army. Discontent comes next. Third is hunger and thirst. Craving is your fourth army. Fifth is dullness and stupor. Fear is said to be sixth. Your doubt is army number 7. Anger and hypocrisy come 8th. Ambition, greed, and wanting praise, fame obtained through deception, seeking to exalt oneself and put down others. This is the army of Mara, the evil friend who inflicts torment. Some ascetics and priests appear to be caught up in that. This army of yours, which overcomes this world and that of the gods, I will destroy with knowledge, just as water destroys a vessel of unbaked clay. With mindfulness as the foundation and knowledge as my training, I act carefully. So what will you now do, O feeble-minded one? As the Bodhisattva spoke these words, Mara, the evil one, felt very uncomfortable and sad. Having lost his confidence, he disappeared. Monks, at that point, the Bodhisattva thought to himself, there are monks and priests in the past, the future, and the present who cause themselves harm. They experience intense suffering from unbearable heat and go through very unpleasant experiences. In this way, they suffer greatly. Monks, I continued to think, with these acts and methods, I have not been able to manifest any true knowledge that would be higher than man-made teachings. This path does not lead to awakening. This path is incapable of eradicating the continuation of birth, old age, and death in the future. But there must be another path to awakening that can eradicate the future suffering of birth, old age, and death.
Kunga? You're muted, Kunga.
Monks, I continued to think. Once when I was sitting in my father's park under the shade of a rose apple tree, I rejoiced as I attained the first level of concentration, which is free from desires and negativities, endued with good qualities, reflective, investigative, and full of joy, born out of discrimination. I rejoiced as I attained the level of concentration up to the 4th. That indeed must be the path to awakening, which can eradicate the arising of the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And so a conviction was born in me. This is the path to awakening. Again, I thought, yet this path cannot be realized by someone who has grown so weak. If I were to proceed toward the seat of awakening merely by the power of my supernatural knowledge, but with my body so critically weak, future beings would not be disposed favorably towards me, and this path would not lead to awakening. Therefore, I shall begin to eat solid food again. That way I can regain my physical strength. Once I do so, I will proceed to the seat of awakening. Monks, at this point, some gods felt concerned for me. Since they knew my thoughts, they came to where I was staying and told me, Holy man, don't eat solid food. We can give you nourishment through the pores of your body. Monks, I then thought, I took a vow to remain fasting, and in this way the people in the villages around me would know that the mendicant Gautama abstained from food. However, if these concerned gods were to grant me nourishment through the pores of my body, I would be the worst of hypocrites. The Bodhisattva therefore decided to disregard the words of the gods in order to avoid hypocrisy. Instead, he decided to begin eating solid foods. Monks, in this way, the Bodhisattva rose from the seat where he had practiced discipline and hardship for the past 6 years, and he proclaimed, I will now eat solid foods such as molasses, pea soup, lentil soup, porridge, and rice.
Monks, one moment. Monks, at that point, the 5 ascetic companions thought to themselves, based on this path and these practices, the mendicant Gautama appears unable to actualize an exalted wisdom vision that is any higher than man-made teachings. Yet how can eating solid foods and leading a comfortable life be of any help? What an ignorant and childish man. With this thought in mind, the companions left the Bodhisattva and headed towards Varanasi, where they set up camp at the deer park by the hill of the fallen sages. Ever since the Bodhisattva had begun his practice of austerities, 10 young girls from the village had served him as a way to see him, venerate him, and assist him. At the same time, his 5 companions had also attended him by bringing him the single juniper berry, sesame seed, or rice grain that he ate. The names of these 10 village girls were Bali, Balagupta, Supriya, Vijayasena, Atimukha Kamala, Sundari, Kumbhakari, Ulu Vilaka, Jatitalaka, and Sujata. These young girls now prepared various types of soups for their Bodhisattva and offered them to him. The Bodhisattva accepted these meals, but he also gradually began to go on alms rounds in the local village. In this way, he regained his previous luster, appearance, and strength. People now began calling him the beautiful monk and the great monk. Monks, every day since the beginning of the Bodhisattva's practice of austerities, the village girl Sujata had offered food to 800 priests in the hope that the Bodhisattva would come out of his discipline and hardship and maintain his vital functions. As she did so, she offered the prayer, "May the Bodhisattva take my food and thereby truly attain perfect and completely unexcelled awakening." Monks, since 6 years had passed, I had this thought. My saffron robes have really aged. Perhaps it would be good if I could find some cloth to cover me. Monks, at that point, one of Sujata's servants, a woman named Rada, had just died. She had been wrapped in a hemp cloth and left in the channel ground. When I saw this dusty rag, I decided to use it to cover myself. As I stood there, bent over with my left leg stretched out and my right hand reaching down in order to pick up the rag, one earth god called out to the sky gods, "Friends, here is a descendant of a great royal clan. He has abandoned his kingdom of a universal monarch, and now he turns his mind to a dusty rag. What a sight! Friends, this is really amazing." All the sky gods heard the voice of the earth god, and they passed on the message to the gods in the heaven of the 4 great kings. The gods in the heaven of the 4 great kings told the gods in the heaven of the 33. Then in turn passed on the message to the gods in the heaven free from strife. And from there the message spread to the heaven of joy, the heaven of delighting in emanations, the heaven of making use of others' emanations, and finally all the way to the Brahma realm. Monks, at that time, at that moment, at that very instant, this message resounded and traveled all the way to highest heaven. Friends, here is a descendant of great royal clan. He has abandoned his kingdom of a royal monarch, and now he turns his mind to a dusty rag. What a sight! Friends, this is really amazing.
Is it me now?
Yes, Alex.
The Bodhisattva then thought to himself, "I have found this dusty rag, so it would be good if I could find some water to wash it with." At that very moment, the gods hit the ground with their hands, and on that spot a lotus pond appeared. Till to this day, this pond is known as the pond where the hand struck. Once again, the Bodhisattva thought, "Now I have obtained water, so it would be good if I could also find a flat stone on which to wash this cloth." At that very moment, the chakra placed such a rock before him, and the Bodhisattva now began to wash the dusty rag. Chakra, king of the gods, then spoke to the Bodhisattva, "Holy man, give the cloth to me, then I will wash it." However, the Bodhisattva wanted to demonstrate the conduct of a renunciant, so he did not give the cloth to Chakra. Instead, he washed it himself. Afterward, the Bodhisattva felt tired and wanted to step out of the pond. However, Mara, the evil one, felt jealous and magically raised the edge of the pond. Yet at the side of the pond was a large papuka tree. In order to follow the worldly custom and to please the goddess of the tree, the Bodhisattva called out to her, "Listen, goddess, lower one of your branches." The goddess lowered the branch and the Bodhisattva grasped it. When he was lifted up, as the Bodhisattva grasped it, he was lifted out of the pond. Once he was free, he remained under the shade of Kapuka tree, where he sewed the dusty rag into the robe of a monk. Today, this place is still known as the sewing of the dusty rag. At that point, a god from the pure realm, who was called Vimala Prabha, offered the Bodhisattva divine fabric that had been dyed in saffron red color, as is suitable for a monk. The Bodhisattva accepted the gift, and the following morning he put on this fabric, arranged them into a monk's robe, and went to the nearby village. At midnight, the gods announced the following to Sujata, daughter of the villager Nandika, in the village Sinapari in Urubila. The one for whom you have been making offering has relaxed his discipline and decided that he will once again eat nourishing and solid food. Previously, you made the aspiration, "May the Bodhisattva take my food and thereby truly attain perfect and completely unexcelled awakening." Now that time has come, so you must do what you ought to be doing.
Monks, as soon as Sujata, daughter of the villager Nandika, heard the words of the god, she quickly gathered the milk of 1,000 cows. 7 times she skimmed the cream from the milk until she obtained a thick, strength-giving cream. Then she pounded this cream into a new clay pot, poured this cream into a new clay pot, mixed it with the freshest rice, and placed it on a brand new stove. As the milk porridge was cooking, various omens manifested. Within the milk appeared the contours of an endless knot, a simple swastika, an elaborate swastika, a lotus, a vardhamana, and other auspicious signs. Upon seeing this, Sujata thought to herself, "The appearance of these signs surely means that the Bodhisattva will now take food and obtain unexcelled, perfect, and complete awakening." At that time, the fortune teller, versed in ritual and the act of reading signs, came to the village and prophesied that someone would attain immortality there. When Sujata had finished cooking the porridge, she placed it on the ground where, full of devotion, she had already prepared a seat for the Bodhisattva by scattering flowers and perfumed water. She then told one of her servants, a woman called Uttara, "Go and fetch the priest. I will stay here and look after this milk porridge with honey." "Very well, my lady," answered Uttara, who then did as she was told. She went off in the eastern direction, but there she met only the Bodhisattva. She went south, but there as well she met the Bodhisattva. Then she went west and north, but in those places as well she encountered the Bodhisattva. At that time, some gods from the pure realms had removed all the extremist practitioners, and none of these were to be found. Once she returned, Uttara told her mistress what had happened. Wherever I go, the only person I meet is that beautiful monk. Other than him, there are no monks or priests. Sujata said, he alone is the monk. He alone is the priest. It is for his sake that I prepared this meal. Go, Uttara, and fetch him. Very well, my lady, said Uttara, and off she went. When she met the Bodhisattva, she bowed at his feet and conveyed Sujata's invitation to him. Monks, the Bodhisattva then went to the home of the village girl Sujata, where he sat down at the seat that had been prepared for him. Monks, the village girl Sujata then filled a golden vessel with the milk porridge and honey and offered it to the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva then had the thought, Sujata has offered this food, and if I eat it now, there is no doubt that I will truly attain perfect and complete unexcelled awakening. Then the Bodhisattva had his meal. When he was done, he got up and asked Sujata, Sujata, what should I do with the golden bowl? Please take it with you, she replied. The Bodhisattva told her, I don't need this bowl. Sujata then told him, well then, do as you please, but I do not give food to anyone without also giving them a bowl.
So the Bodhisattva took the bowl and left Urabilva. Before noon, he arrived at the banks of the Nairanjana River, the river of Nagas. He put down his bowl and robe and entered the water to refresh himself. Monks, while the Bodhisattva was bathing, several 100,000 gods came to venerate them. They poured divine aloe and sandalwood powder, as well as various ointments into the river, and they scattered divine flowers of all colors onto the water. In this way, the whole great Nairanjana River flowed on full of divine perfumes and flowers that rained down. Many trillion gods came to collect the perfumed water that the Bodhisattva had used for bathing. They brought it with them to their own abodes in order to enshrine it in memorials and venerate it. The village girl Sujata also collected all the hair and the beard of the Bodhisattva, thinking that it must be sacred. She took it with her in order to make memorials for veneration. When the Bodhisattva emerged from the river, he wanted to sit down, and so he looked for a suitable place on the riverbank. Right then, a Naga girl who lived in the Nairanjana River emerged out of the earth's surface and offered the Bodhisattva a throne made of jewels. The Bodhisattva took a seat there, and while he was thinking fondly of the village girl Sujata, he drank what he needed of the milk porridge made with honey. When he was done with his meal, he threw the golden bowl into the water without any feelings of attachment. As soon as the bowl hit the water, the Naga king Sagara, full of devotion and great respect, came to fetch the bowl and bring it to his kingdom, thinking, this is worthy of veneration. At that point, the thousand-eyed Indra, the destroyer of cities, changed into a Garuda with a diamond beak and attempted to steal the golden bowl from the Naga king Sagara. When Indra was unable to do so, he changed into his own form and requested it politely. This time he received the bowl and he brought it back to the heaven of the 33 in order to enshrine it in a memorial for the sake of worship. In this heaven, he started a religious festival called the Procession of the Bowl, observed on the days of astrological juncture. To this day, the gods in the heaven of the 33 hold an annual festival of the bowl. The Naga girl carried off the magnificent throne in order to make a memorial out of it and venerate it. Monks, due to the strength of the Bodhisattva's merit and the power of his insight, his body instantaneously changed as soon as he took in solid foods. In one moment, his body regained its previous beautiful lotus-like luster. He now manifested the 32 and 80 marks of a great being, as well as a halo of light, 1 fathom in diameter around his body.
On this topic, it is said, after 6 years of austerities, the Blessed One thinks, I may have the strength of concentration and supernatural knowledge, but if I go to the King of Trees in order to awaken to omniscience under its branches, while I am this emaciated, This would not be kind towards beings in the future. Gods and humans with little merit look for wisdom in mistaken ways. Being in a weakened state, they are unable to attain afterlife awakening. Yet, if I eat solid food and excellent food, I will regain my physical strength. Then I can go to the king of trees to attain omniscience, awakening under its branches. The village girl Sujata, who has done much good to the past, continuously makes offerings, thinking, "May this guide complete his discipline." When she hears the request of the god, she brings milk porridge with honey. She goes to the river and happily sits on the banks of the Nairanjana. For 1,000 eons, the Bodhisattva practiced disciplines and his faculties are at peace. He goes to the Nairanjana, surrounded by a host of gods and nagas, as well as sages. He makes the crossing and bathes with thoughts aimed at liberating others. The sage, pure and stainless, washes himself in the river out of love for the world. Trillions of gods joyfully descend into the river and infuse the waters with perfumes and scented powders so the sacred being can bathe. When the stainless bodhisattvas bathe and rest serene on the shore, thousands of gods rejoice in taking bathing water as an object for venerating the pure being. The god offers him saffron robes of beautiful stainless cloth. Dressed in these suitable robes, the Blessed One rests on the banks of the river. A Naga girl joyfully and devotedly erects a splendid throne on which the guide of the universe peacefully sits.
Sujata fills the golden bowl with food and offers it to the mindful one. She prostrates at his feet, saying joyfully, "Great God, please enjoy this." The mindful one eats as much as necessary and then throws the bowl in the river. The highest God, the destroyer of cities, carries it off, saying, "I will venerate it." The very moment the victorious one consumes solid and excellent food, his body regains its former strength, magnificence, and splendor. To Sujata and the gods he offers a teaching that benefits them greatly. He, the lion with the bearing of a swan and the gait of a supreme elephant, proceeds to the Bodhi tree. This concludes the 18th chapter on the Nairanjana River. Okay, thank you all very much.
So we're going to stop here, right?
Yes, we're going to stop here. And Alex, would you like to make a comment about this chapter? What did you think of this chapter? And
It's interesting. I was expecting to hear the story about the three daughters of the Mara, but instead there was about armies. But I did hear the sort of legend about how Buddha was attacked by some kind of armies, and he was not scared of them, and he like persevered. But here it elaborates, saying that the armies are actually not the real armies, but it was different kind of delusions and kind of like distractive thoughts that were surrounding Bodhisattva, and he overcome, following those thoughts. There are some, like I struck by the level of detail there, that like the names of these girls, and I never thought there were like more than one. Usually they mention just one. But overall, like this, sometimes when I see those details, I'm thinking, hey, that must be some factual things, because like, why would people make up such details? It just doesn't make sense. But I guess if they are there were some historical reason for that.
okay, thank you. Bernie, can you comment on that, on what you got out of the story and just what Alex suggested? What do you think of that?
Well, let me see. I did enjoy the chapter, and it was pretty straightforward. It was about a bit exaggerated about the food that was prepared for him, but otherwise it was more natural than some of the chapters that we've seen before, and interesting. And uh, let's see, what can I say? It's not much in the way of Buddhist teaching, except for the section that Alex talked about, where it listed the different armies of Mara, which are really just kind of personifications for all the different obstacles to enlightenment. And unless you want to consider the fact that nourishing food is necessary to practice meditation to be a teaching, I suppose you could do that. But otherwise, it's more or less a straight historical teaching with a few fantastic details like Mara messing with the lake so the Bodhisattva couldn't get out, but otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward telling of the story of how the Bodhisattva came to the day when he was going to be the day before he was going to be enlightened.
Very good. Thank you. Brendan, do you have comments?
Yeah, I have two. I was fascinated by the it says at that time some gods from the pure realms had removed all the extremist practitioners. So
Where
that's
are you?
18.35.
Okay.
And now none of them were to be found. So I was trying to envision who the extremist practitioners were. So that was one thing. And then I'm familiar with a lot of textual criticism of the Bible or analysis. So, is there something similar for Buddhism? At one point, it looks like a god helped the Buddha to get out of the water by through a branch, I think it was. So, do we believe that that's exactly how it happened? Is it possible there's some exaggeration? How do we understand that? So that would be my question.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a lot of allegory, metaphor. It's this is borders on mythological, I suppose. But what difference does it make? Even if it's absolutely true. The essence of it behind it is that here was the Bodhisattva was so powerful and it was so anticipated that even the spiritual gods and so on that were around were all charged. I mean, the whole atmosphere was just charged with what was coming and so on. So it's a beautiful way to express all of that, I think.
Perhaps we write differently today as well. I mean, look at Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. It's kind of similar to that. It's more fantastic, and this Western obsession with, well, what can you perceive with your eyes and your ears, and what did you actually see? Perhaps thousands of years of history since then.
Yes. Kunga, how about you? Would you like to comment? What do you think?
Yeah. I want to comment on Brendan's first question about the other people who are performing austerities. I think my understanding is that there were many people performing severe austerities like that. And I think early on in one of the other chapters that the Buddha talks about how he needed to perform those type of austerities to prove that they weren't effective. So no one would believe him, believe his experience if he didn't have a lived experience of that those practices were bankrupt. So I think that was a common practice. And I think you mentioned that earlier, that they still have those types of practices in India. There are some extreme practitioners doing things like holding their breath or not eating or, performing all kinds of austerities, pretty extreme austerities. And then the second comment was it's a good thing Mara came around, because right after Mara left, he decided that wasn't the way. So even though he says, Mara, get out of here, you're not helping me, in the end, he does decide that that's not the path. So so I think that's interesting. Mara maybe is a representation, well, through the armies, like he's obviously a representation of all these unskillful emotions and things that need to be seen through. And once they're seen through, then the Buddha decides that this path is not going to work. He's traveled this path long enough that now it's time to regain his experience that he recalled from being a young child. And I remember that story, from other ways of telling this, where he's out in the field watching his father plow, and he decides that he remembers that moment of experience of enlightenment that he had there. And I think they told it in this story as well earlier on. The Buddha was out there, and the maid put him there, and the shadow of the tree kept him covered the whole time, and naturally entered a state of meditation. And then recalling that memory, that childhood memory, gives him an idea of what he needs to do next, and then he needs to nourish himself and make himself strong enough so that he can pursue that goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I wonder if when they talk about the auspicious signs in 18.34, talking about the auspicious signs, I wonder if those are the 8 auspicious signs. When we read later on, we'll see if, I know those 8 auspicious signs, as I've been introduced to them, was that these appeared at the time when he attained enlightenment. But here it's suggesting, well, maybe, this was a prelude to that and was encouragement to the Bodhisattva. I also, my own impression of the 8 auspicious signs was that they are representative, they are metaphor for the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is necessary for this preparation, to be able to attain enlightenment. And that's what he's doing. So it would be appropriate in my mind in this way, thinking that those signs would appear to encourage him on this way and so on. So that's one thought I had about this. And the Bodhisattva appearing in all directions, it's showing that that there's this, this timelessness, this locationlessness of his presence, of his being, is what this is representative of. And of course, in this section, I don't think it's saying it directly, but, he is representative of all of humankind to be able to go through this procedure in order to attain enlightenment, to be able to overcome the Mara's armies and so on like that in preparation. So all this is all necessary to the liberation.
May I just comment on the comments?
Sure.
I agree that I was also a bit struck by the disappearance of extreme practitioners, but then on a second thought, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were like exterminated or killed. That could be meant that, like, the word about Buddha kind of spread out, and other people there realized that maybe they shouldn't engage in those extreme practices, and they stopped them at least for some time. So, and that way the extreme practitioners disappeared because they stopped their practices. That's one thought I had. And there was oh yes, and about the Mara, I was thinking that, like, why would this passage be there because like in the end, Buddha did what Mara was suggesting to do. But I think the reason that long explanation is there is to show us that the motivation behind what Buddha has done is very much different from what Mara was suggesting. That Mara was suggesting to think about like your own life, and that you have your own only life, and like why not to live it to the fullest and preserve it, while Buddha was actually thinking more about others, and like was disregarding his own comfort and his own life. So and then he started eating food not because he wanted to be better, but he wanted to be able to deliver dharma better to the other people. I think at least what I got from that. I don't know if anybody has any similar conclusions.
Thank you. Anybody like to comment? Well, I'd like to say that the extremists makes me wonder if they were like the naysayers, or those who were obviously, as it says, extreme, but the naysayers are saying, oh, that's not possible and so on, that they were so struck with what was happening with the Bodhisattva that they became simply speechless. They may have been present, but they were speechless, and just having to not be able to do anything but observe what was going on. To the point of the river, where 18.38, where the Bodhisattva bathed himself. I wonder if this became, something of like a baptism. That he was cleansing himself, of past misdeeds, etc. The dirt that was on his body and so on, and that this became a form of a baptism. And then in later traditions, the baptism became a very, very, very important feature of Christianity and so on, and Judaism and so on. So it makes me wonder if there's something about that, or is this something that was added into? This became part of the mythology of this translation or something. How literal can we take this? But then again, it really doesn't matter. If we look at the whole thing as allegory, I think is the safest thing to do. And then on the question of the three bodies, we've talked about this many times over the years in our Buddhism 101, that we recognize our physical body. It's very obvious. We recognize our intellectual body. That's very obvious. And most people just remain in that physical, intellectual realization of themselves. That's their identity, who they are. But as we say, that's two legs of a stool that's very hard to keep balanced. But it's with the introduction of the third leg, it's through the recognition of the spiritual body, of the third leg, that now that individual can be balanced in all situations. And we find that the dynamic between the physical and the intellectual now becomes balanced out, becomes interceded with the spirituality. And so the illnesses, the psychosomatic illnesses that can happen between the physical and the intellectual and so on, can be healed, can be overcome through that third leg and so on. So it's very important. And to be able to recognize the three bodies, I think, is one of the great things about all these traditions, because in all these traditions, whether it's Buddhism or it's Hinduism or it's Christianity or Judaism or Islam, they all speak about a holy trinity. at a very core of their doctrine, of what what their tradition is about, is that Holy Trinity. So to see that within ourselves, our physical body, our intellectual body, and our spiritual body is goes along with that. Please, any comments?
I would like say a couple things. I think baptism is quite different. In baptism, it kind of symbolizes the struggles, because we're supposed to submerge underwater with like the whole head holding the breath, supposed to submerge underwater, and then finally come out. So it's like death and then rebirth. That's kind of symbolism for baptism, from what I understand. But I think I think the symbolism of purification, that Bodhisattva didn't just put the robe from that person, like he actually cleaned it himself. I think this is kind of symbolism that we are responsible for our own cleanliness. So like we're responsible for our own purification. We need to purify physical body and spiritual and emotional body. No God can do that for us. We have to do it ourselves. That what spoke to me. And regarding the branches of the tree, I don't know about other traditions, but like in many Russian fairy tales, the tree is alive, and the tree like raises and pulls branches up, sometimes, as the tree wishes. So I think this is, I don't think in Russia the trees are any different than the United States, in America, or in India. But I think, but we all know that actually the plants can move. They can move leaves, they can move flowers, turn them around. So, but it could be that at some extreme circumstances, they could move even branches. And remember that the one of the tree that was helping Buddha's mother to give birth, it also moved its branch. I think it was lowering its branch to hold onto it. So it's interesting that this kind of tree helping Buddha is common again in the story.
Thank you. Yes, good observations. Thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts? We can move on to the next chapter if you like. I can show a little bit more of the trip if you're interested, but if we go to chapter 19, if we just recite the first 17 of the verses and speak about that, because that's one section, and then there's a couple other sections after that. So I think we have enough time to do that if you'd like to move forward and do that. So let me see. So Alex, you're up next. So if you would like to recite verse 19.1 and the rest of that page, and then Bernie, if you'll continue with the second page, and then Brendan with the third page, and then Kungo with the fourth page. And that really will end it, and then we can have a little bit of a discussion. That won't take us long to be able to do that.
All right. Approaching the seat of awakening. Monks, when the Bodhisattva bathed in the Nairanjana River and enjoyed a meal, his physical strength came back to him. With a triumphant gait, he now began to walk toward the great Bodhi tree. This tree was the king of trees and was found at a place characterized by 16 unique features. He walked with the gait of a great being. It was an undisturbed gait, a gait of the Naga Indrayasi, a steadfast gait, a gait as stable as Mount Meru, the king of mountains. He walked in a straight line without stumbling, not too fast, not too slow, without stomping heavily or dragging his feet. It was a graceful stride and stainless stride, a beautiful stride, a stride free from anger, a stride free from delusion, and a stride free from attachment. It was the stride of a lion, the stride of the king of the swans, the stride of the king of elephants, the stride of Narayana, the stride of that floats above the surface, the stride that leaves an impression of a 1,000-spoked wheel on the ground, the stride of he whose fingers are connected through a web and who has copper-colored nails, the stride that makes the earth resound, and the stride that crushes the king of the mountain. He walked with the stride of someone whose feet level off the terrain, be it sloping up, sloping down. The stride that leads sentient beings to happy rebirth through contact with the light rays that emerge from the web between his fingers. The stride that walks upon stainless lotuses. The stride that proceeds from previous wholesome actions. The stride of the previous Buddha lines, and the stride that proceeds from a stable and indestructible diamond-like intention. He had a stride that destroys all lower realms and all miserable existences, a stride that brings happiness to all beings, a stride that points out the path to liberation, a stride that renders powerless the strength of demons, and stride that suppresses evil opponents with their doctrines, a stride that removes the cataract of darkness and disturbing emotions, a stride that undoes the workings of cyclic existence.
He walked with the gait that outshines Chakra, Rama, Maheshwara, and the worldly protectors. His stride was that of a single lord of the great trichiliocosm, the spontaneous stride that cannot be overpowered, the stride that actualizes the attainment of omniscient wisdom, the stride of mindfulness and insight, the stride that leads to happy rebirth, the stride that pacifies old age and death, the stride of stainless peace, the stride that leads to the city of nirvana, which is auspicious, stainless, and free from fear. With such a stride, the Bodhisattva set out for the seat of awakening. Monks on the stretch between Nairanjana River and the seat of awakening, the gods of wind clouds swept the road for the Bodhisattva. while the gods of the rain clouds sprinkled his path with scented water and scattered flowers along the way. At that point, all the trees in the world of the great trichiliocosm bent their crowns toward the seat of awakening. All the children who had been born on that very day now slept with their heads toward the seat of awakening. Likewise, all the mountains that exist in this world of the great trichiliocosm, such as Mount Meru, bowed toward the seat of awakening. All the way from Nairanjana River to the seat of awakening, the road had been beautified for a stretch of several miles by the gods of desire realm. At both sides of the road, they had magically erected a railing made from 7 types of precious stones. The road was shaded at the height of 7 palm trees with a jeweled lattice work and adorned with divine parasols, flags, and banners. At the distance of an arrow's flight, they had emanated a row of palm trees made of the 7 types of precious stones and taller than the railing. Between all of the palm trees, jewel garlands were strung. In between each pair of palm trees, a lotus pond was built, filled with scented water, lined with golden sand, and covered in blue, yellow, red, and white lotuses. Jeweled ledges and barrel staircases surrounded the ponds. The ponds resounded with the calls of ducks, storks, swans, geese, cranes, and peacocks. 80,000 divine maidens sprinkled the path with flowers of divine scent. In front of each of the palm trees was a jeweled podium in which 80,000 divine maidens stood, proffering containers with powders of sandal and aloes wood, and holding up lighted containers with powders of incense burns with sandalwood. On each of these jeweled podiums were also 5,000 divine maidens singing celestial songs. Monks, in this way, the Bodhisattva practiced on the way, emitting trillions of light rays while the realm shook. Music played from the millions of instruments. A great rain with an abundance of flowers fell. Millions of silken banners fluttered in the wind. Millions of drums resounded as if they were beaten, and horses, elephants, and bulls circumambulated the Bodhisattva. Hundreds of thousands of parrots, mynas, cuckoos, partridge, swans, sandpipers, peacocks, and chakravaka birds were drawn into the Bodhisattva's presence, adorned with hundreds of thousands of auspicious signs. Such was the road on which the Bodhisattva traveled on his way to the seat of awakening.
On that night, the very night when the Bodhisattva set his aim on attaining full and complete awakening, the all-powerful Brahma, the ruler of the great trichiliocosm, called out to his large retinue in the Brahma realm. Friends, he said, you should be aware of this. The Bodhisattva, the great being, has donned the great armor. Without forsaking his great vow, protected by his solid armor, he is undeterred and has perfected all the conduct of a Bodhisattva. He has reached the further shore of all the perfections and become a master of all the grounds of a Bodhisattva. He is perfectly pure in his aspirations of a Bodhisattva and joins in the 5 spiritual faculties of all sentient beings. He has entered the secret locations of all the thus gone ones and is beyond all paths of demonic activity. He is not dependent on others regarding the basis for acquiring merit. He is blessed by all thus gone ones. He demonstrates the path to complete freedom for all sentient beings. He is a great captain who conquers the circle of Mara's army. He is the single hero of the trichilocosm. He has accomplished all the medicines of Dharma and is the great king of physicians, wearing a silken headband of salvation. He is the great Dharma king who shines the bright light of knowledge. He is a great meteor-like king, who, like a magnificent lotus flower, is unstained by the 8 worldly concerns. He never forgets the Dharinis of any teaching. He is like a great ocean, free from attachment and aversion. He is immovable and unshakable like the great central mountain. He is utterly stainless, pure, and in possession of a very wholesome mind, and thus he is like a great jewel. He has become a master of all phenomenon and is, in all his actions, beyond intentions. The Bodhisattva, who is like the great Brahma, proceeds to the seat of awakening with a desire to awaken to unexcelled, perfect, and complete Buddhahood in order to tame the armies of Mara. He proceeds in order to perfectly accomplish the 10 powers, the Fourfold Fearlessness, and the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha. His aim is to turn the great wheel of Dharma and utter the lion's great roar. With the gift of Dharma, he will satisfy all sentient beings. He will purify the eye of Dharma of all sentient beings and annihilate all his opponents together with their doctrines. He goes to the seat of awakening to demonstrate the fulfillment of his previous vows and to gain a ruler's complete mastery over all phenomena. Friends, for these reasons, you should pay homage to the Bodhisattva and joyfully assist him in every way possible.
Then at that point, the all-powerful Brahma spoke these verses. He by whose merits and glorious splendor the great path can be known, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, as well as the absorptions and the types of higher knowledge, has practiced wholesome conduct for 1,000 eons and now sets out for the Bodhi tree. You should make offerings to that sage as he practices to fulfill his aspirations. Take refuge in him, and you will not meet or experience the fears of the lower realms or the lack of the freedoms. Instead, you will find the happiness of desire realm gods in the vast abode of Brahma. He went through hardships for 6 years, and now he departs for the Bodhi tree. Well done. Let us all venerate this man with joy and devotion. He is the king of the trichilocosm, the best of masters, the royal master of Dharma. In the cities of Indra, Brahma, Surya, and Kandra, there is no equal to him. When he was born, 1 trillion worlds quaked in 6 different ways. Today he sets out for the supreme magnificent tree to conquer the armies of Mara. The crown of his head I cannot see, nor can the others here in the Brahma realm. His body, bearing the best of the excellent marks, is adorned with the 32. His speech is beautiful, sweet, and pleasant to hear, a voice melodious like that of Brahma. His mind is calm and free from anger. Come, let's pay him homage. Intelligent ones who aim to transcend the perpetual bliss in the realms of Indra and Brahma, or those who wish to cut the net of the fettering vines of disturbing emotions, or those wishing to attain immortality without hearing about it from others, which is an auspicious solitary awakening.
Please continue.
If anyone desires awakening, they should pay homage to the 3 realms, in the 3 realms to this guide. He has renounced the earth with its oceans, along with countless precious objects. He has abandoned palaces with their oval windows and terraces, as well as conveyances. In the land adorned with the exquisite flowers, with beautiful parks, springs, and ponds, he gave up his limbs, his head, and his eyes, and now he walks to the seat of awakening.
Thank you. So this is pretty straightforward. Anybody have any comments about this? Well, the one thing that I'd like to point out is on 19.11, and there's 3 references. One is to the 10 powers, the second is the Fourfold Fearlessnesses, and the next one is the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha. Now, I love these kinds of lists, and each of these is listed in the glossary. So the 10 powers are G662, and the Fourfold Fearlessnesses are G199, and the 18 unique qualities are G169. So maybe just as a refresher, we can go over those. So G662, the 10 powers. So if you've got your glossary handy and you want to follow this, so it says, one set among the different qualities of a Buddha, the 10 powers, one set among the different qualities of a Buddha. The 10 strengths are, the strengths and the powers are interchangeable here, are number 1, the knowledge of what is possible and not possible. Number 2, the knowledge of the ripening of karma. Number 3, the knowledge of the variety of aspirations. Number 4, the knowledge of the variety of natures. Number 5, the knowledge of the different levels of capabilities. Number 6, the knowledge of the destination of all paths. Number 7, the knowledge of various states of meditation. Number 8, the knowledge of remembering previous lives. Number 9, the knowledge of deaths and rebirths. And number 10, the knowledge of the cessation of defilements. So I find these things very interesting and encouraging because, in our own lives, in one way or another, we relate to these things. Either, yes, these are things that have occurred to us or things that we've aspired to or things that will help guide us to where it is that we need to be going if we haven't had those thoughts. So these 10 powers, 10 strengths are very, very important. Any comments? Okay. Then 199, the Fourfold Fearlessnesses. Fearlessness in declaring that one has, number 1, awakened, number 2, ceased all illusions, number 3, taught the obstacles to awakening, and number 4, shown the way to liberation. So going back to 1911, it says, he proceeds in order to perfectly accomplish those 10 powers and the Fourfold Fearlessnesses, so that he's not shy about speaking about his accomplishment of enlightenment, of awakening, of going through the awakening. And then the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha, the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha, 169. So this is 18 special features of a Buddha's behavior, realization, activity, and wisdom that are not shared by other beings. They are generally listed as 1, he never makes a mistake. 2, he is never boisterous. 3, he never forgets. 4, his concentration never falters. 5, he has no notion of distinctness. 6, his equanimity is not due to lack of consideration. Number 7, his motivation never falters. Number 8, his endeavor never fails. Number 9, his mindfulness never falters. Number 10, he never abandons his concentration. Number 11, his insight, prajna, never decreases. Number 12, his liberation never fails. 13, all his physical actions are preceded and followed by wisdom, jhana. 14, all his verbal actions are preceded and followed by wisdom. 15, all his mental actions are preceded and followed by wisdom. 16, his wisdom and vision perceive the past without attachment or hindrance. 17, his wisdom and vision perceive the future without attachment or hindrance. And 18, his wisdom and vision perceive the present without attachment or hindrance. So this is his path. He's recognizing that. And the whole function of our reading these sutras, this sutra in particular, but all these sutras, is to refresh our memory, is to rekindle our motivation, to reimagine who it is that we can be, who we are, and who it is that we're trying to be, what it is that we're trying to be, who we are as a complete human being, to recognize, to realize our Buddha nature, our true nature. So here is all these guides to help us to do that. We're not working in a vacuum. We're working in a great arena of information and guidance. So anybody like to comment on that? Gunga, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting. So all these qualities of the Buddha, like in Zen Buddhism, we teach about Buddha being an inner quality that we all possess. I think they teach that in Tibetan Buddhism also, is that you have this spirit of enlightenment that should need to be uncovered up. It exists within yourself. So all these powers and all these other things would maybe somehow felt to exist as part of your consciousness. And I think about the different ideas about the Dharmakaya being beyond all definition and all labeling conceptual ideas. So I see these and some of these lists as, seeking to project us beyond the limits of our conceptual thinking. We read these lists and are like, there's no way any person could have all these qualities, must be something other than a person. But at the same time, we teach in Buddhism that the Buddha is not a god. The Buddha said himself he's not a god. He was merely awakened. So then you think about, what would be the way to experience these things. And I think that is just this idea that you're trying to experience life beyond the limits of conceptualizing what you think life should be or shouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else comment?
I'll make it light for a sec. This is a very interesting discussion, but I'll make it real lowbrow. There's a book series I like, and the main character is a devout Buddhist. He's a police detective in Thailand, and he has some of these abilities himself, it seems like, including the ability to understand, to have knowledge of past lives. So my question for Lance is, have you ever known any lamas or anyone else who had any of these spiritual powers in your experience?
Well, I'd like to say, sure, of course, and like I said, these are things that we have within ourselves, so there may have been, a sprinkle of light here and there, and in some of the teachers it's greater, and I've read about them, but in, some of the teachers that I met, absolutely, and within myself and within other people, that's the reality of all this, is being able to recognize that and to have it be encouraging, to develop the three faiths. Remember the three faiths we talked about? The trusting faith, the yearning faith, and the clear faith. Do we yearn to be our Buddha nature? Do we yearn for that? And do we have trust in a system that takes us to that true nature? Whether it's Buddhism or it's Christianity or whatever, do we have trust in that and the teachers and everything? And do we have a clear faith in those moments when we have that kind of spontaneous clarity? And to not deny those things, to see those things and recognize those things as being valid and saying, oh yeah, I really do have that power. I really do see that. That is within me. Yeah, but I may lose it just as quickly as I saw it. But nevertheless, that there's a clear faith that it is there because I've experienced it. and to be reflective on it. And this is the power of meditation. Because with meditation, true meditation, we're developing one-pointed mindfulness. And as we do that, we're cutting through all the junk of mundane life and everything. But then as mundane life comes up, we're able to dismiss it and be able to say, oh, I can think about that later on. I don't have to think about that now. Let me go back to my watching the breath or whatever my technique for one-pointed mindfulness is. But then something comes up that might have happened to you 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Some thought you may have had, some experience you might have had that was one of those divine qualities. And with that one-pointed mindfulness, that comes up in its purity, and you can begin to see that, and you begin to pick that apart. You be able to recognize that and see, oh yes, I do have a divine nature. And you did it by being able to focus or develop that one-pointed mindfulness. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
The key to all this, of course, is practice, engaging in one-pointed mindfulness. So knowing what to look for here, you see, so these 10 powers, fourfold fearlessnesses, and 18 qualities of the Buddha are signposts. They help us, they're the markers that are helping us to move in that direction and so on. As ordinary human beings who slowly are able to transform themselves to let all that go. It just takes you to that Buddha field and to that state of mind of freedom. Any other thoughts or questions? Does that make sense, what I said? I mean, is there somebody would like to take another point of view with that? So here it says in 19.17, he says, he has renounced the earth with its oceans, along with its countless precious objects. He has abandoned palaces with their oval windows and terraces, as well as conveyances, and the land adorned with exquisite flowers, with beautiful parks, springs, and ponds. He gave up his limbs, his head, and his eyes, and now he walks to the seat of awakening. So that's my point, that we use these things to help us as an ordinary being who transforms into what we consider to be an extraordinary being, who then becomes an ordinary being, who that extraordinariness becomes the ordinariness of being a bodhisattva, of being an enlightened being, of being awakened, to whatever degree we can attain in this lifetime, at this particular time in our lifetime. All right. Thank you all very much. I think there's a few people who have been in our group over the past, year, 2 years, whatever, who are now haven't been with us, but yet they've joined the lamas. They've joined other groups, and whether it's Khepo Samdo, or it's Garchen Rinpoche, or it's Drupal Tinling Ningpo. So there are people who have each gone to them and are are now benefiting greatly from taking that next step. You know, what we're trying to do is introduce you to the possibilities that you may not have thought of before, you know, but the next step is to be able to engage a little bit more in those that do have more experience, who do have more realization and so on like that. And even if it's just dropping in, you know, one occasion with them once a month or for a couple hours or something like that, because they have regular sessions and teachings and practices, and just to drop in with them, just to feel that vibration that comes through. You know, it's not coming through cyberspace, it's coming through space as we might already know it. And to allow the words to come into our hearts and to wake us up and so on. So the invitation is there to do that. And then we all will then have that clear faith, because we'll begin to recognize that within ourselves. All right, so then we'll do our dedication for the practice, for the talk tonight. Tonight we'll do the dedication prayer by Lord Jigten Sumgun, page 36 and 37 in our red prayer practice book that we have. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, yogins and yoginis and dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. By the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. So let me take a moment here and just say that when we recite not gathering, accumulate, when we talk about the four causes of samsara in the 2nd verse of this prayer, it says not result in the 8 worldly concerns that you all should be familiar with, and the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. But let me focus on the 4 causes of samsara. What are the 4 causes of samsara? Why are we here? What is one of the reason? What set is it that we are here? What has caused us to be in samsara? Number 1 is not gathering the accumulations of wisdom and merit. So where is that wisdom to be found? Where is that merit to be cultivated? Number 2, gathering the non-virtues, to gather Oh, the gathering of the non-virtues is what keeps us in samsara. If we're gathering virtues, we will protect ourselves, we will prevent ourselves being further into samsara. 3, creating obstacles to others' virtue. If we stand in the way in whatever form it is, to just negating that there is a pathway and dissuading others to follow this pathway is to create an obstacle for others' virtue. To be able, for them to be able to practice purity, for them to be able to practice wholesomeness, and etc. And number 4 is not dedicating virtue for the benefit of others. To not dedicate whatever we have gathered, whatever we've been able to acquire within our practices and our studies, to not dedicate that for the benefit of others. That's such an important thing. That's what keeps our ego from attaching to our spirituality. So by dedicating virtue for the benefit of others helps us to protect that. So then we say, Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night. See you next week.
Good night.